Alright, this is going to be our notes on distributive property. You want to add these to your notebook, show me when you're done, and then complete the assignment that we talked about. Here we initially see what this distributive property is in letters. Just basically describe, let me fix this focus here. Okay, just basically describe using letters. And that says A times B plus C, these things in parentheses, times this, equals A times B plus A times C. So we're just taking A, we're multiplying it by B, and multiplying it by C, then adding those two together. You can kind of see that here as well, A times B plus A times C. Okay, if we look at this with numbers, we'd have 5 times x plus 3. We just take this 5, multiply it through, and we get 5x plus 15, right? We have another one down here where we have 2 and an x in here, and we might have the 6 on this side as well. So same thing, we're just going to multiply this 6 backwards, and if we wanted to, we could also say turn it the other way and put it in front if it makes us uncomfortable. We could say 12x plus 18, right, because we're just multiplying this through. Another way you could see this is you could have a negative number. Let's just say we have a negative in front of this 2x plus 3. You might say, well, what is that? Well, this really is just a negative 1, and we then take our negative 1 and multiply it through. Remember our rules about negatives and positives, and if you remember, a negative times a negative is a positive, and positive times a negative is a negative, and then positive times a positive equals a positive. And I could switch this around and say negative times positive is a negative. It's the same. Okay, so but if we did this, negative 2 times 2x, we'd have a negative 2x, because we're just going to put the negative on to whatever this is. And then a negative 1 times a positive 3 is going to give us a negative 3. So that's kind of how that would work. Let's just do one more. Let's say we had a negative times 5x minus 3. So again, this is really just a negative 1, negative 5x. Then we take a negative times a negative. That's going to be a positive. The reason this is a negative because this is really a positive, so it'd be negative 5, just following these rules that we stated up here. So that's kind of the distributive property. We could also use this in reverse, and you might say, why would I ever want to do that? But sometimes it's helpful to have us do some mental math and not have to use a calculator perhaps. So if we have this number 7 times 49, you might say, boy, I'll have to like set this up and go like this and do all this math, right? You don't really have to, because what you can do is you can take this and put it into this distributive property and do something that's a little bit easier, right? So 49, we can make it into 50 minus 1, because that is 49, right? And then this becomes easier. 7 times 50 is 350 minus 7, and then we get 343. Okay, that's a little bit easier, right? I think you would agree. And then this one here, 210 times 5, again, we'd have to put the 5 in there. Who wants to do that? Instead, we could just say 200 plus 10 times 5. We could run this around the front if we wanted to, but really 200 times 5 is 1,000 plus 5 times 10 is 50, and we'd have 1,050. So that's kind of some examples how you can use it in reverse. Okay, let's just do a couple here. So these are examples from your book as well. So let's say we had 14 times 51. Well, again, we can do this in reverse. We're trying to make this easier on ourselves, right? So we could just say 14 times 50 minus 1, and then we'll have this 14 times 50, and again, that's a little bit of a problem, right? So 50 times 10 is 500, plus another 200 would be 700. We could probably do that mental math. It's a little bit easier than doing the 51, and then minus 14, and we just do that math, and we get 686, and that would be our answer. Oh, I noticed I made a little mistake here. Look, it's plus 51. So this would be plus 14. That would be 714. So that's kind of that one. Now this one, actually, I think the distributive property, this kind of problem gives us really an advantage, because we don't want to like do all this 9 times 6, make this into an improper fraction. So what we can do is just make this into 6 plus 1/9, right? and then we're going to multiply the 9th, and this time we're just going to put it in front. It doesn't really matter where it is. And then 9 times 6, we know that's 54. And then look, 9, if we just did this, 9 times 1 over 9, these cancel, it becomes 1. So, because, we're like doing 9 over 1 times 1 over 9, we can use that property where they cancel each other out. It's 1, and then we get 55. Looking at that initially, we might say, what in the world? But it's 55, an easy answer. Okay, a couple more and we'll be done. So then simplifying as well. So this usually goes along with distributive property, where we're going to multiply something through, or sometimes it's a variable, but simplifying. So you always want to remember, when you collect terms, they should be like terms. And here we have a 15m and an m. They both have that variable, and really we have a 1 in front of here, right? So we can simplify. We can add these. It would be 15m plus 1m, that's 16m. And then here we have three more terms, algebraic expression. We have 3x cubed plus 5y cubed plus 14. And again, we'll look at this. We're looking for like terms. We have an x cubed, we have a y cubed, and a 14. Really, none of these are the same, so this already is simplified. You might see one like that in your homework. And then here we have this one down the bottom, 5m plus 2m times 10. So a couple ways to do this. We could just take this through, right? We could just take the 10 times 2 would give us 20m, 10 times 5 would give us 50m, and then that would give us 70m. We could also, let's just put it around the front this time, 5m plus 2m, we could just add them, 7m times 10, this would give us 70m. Right. And we can do this. Now, if we were adding these, we couldn't take 10 plus 7m, but we're just multiplying this. So we can multiply this 10 even though this has a variable. So that's some initial notes. I want you to do the problems I've assigned to you. Make sure you have added these notes to your notebook. Let me know if you have any questions, and then we'll review this before you leave today. See you in class, or see you in a little bit.